You ever been in a room so silent you could hear your own heartbeat betray you? Most men, they avoid that room like death. They fill their ears with music, their eyes with flashing screens, their mouths with empty talk, because silence, real silence, is the enemy of cowards. In silence, there's no distraction. And when there's no distraction, all that's left is you, just you, and the noise you pretend doesn't exist. The weak man thinks noise is control. He believes that if he speaks louder, moves faster, consumes more, the demons will stay asleep. But the truth is colder. The moment the world gets quiet, the moment the lights go out, those demons start speaking, and they don't whisper. They scream. They remind him of the promises he broke, the betrayals he committed and endured. They show him his own reflection, without filters, without lies, without applause. Just raw, just him. And that's why most men go insane when they're alone. Not because silence hurts, but because it exposes. Now listen close. The man who can sit in that quiet room, completely alone, and not flinch. That man is rare, because he's not trying to escape himself. He's already fought those inner wars, already faced the voices that accuse him. He didn't run. He didn't drown them with distraction. He sat. He listened. And eventually, they shut the fuck up. Why? Because he stopped reacting. See, control isn't about having the answers. It's about having the calm, that dangerous surgical calm. When a man masters his inner noise, nothing outside can touch him. He walks into chaos, and chaos bows. Not because he's loud, but because he's centered. He doesn't need validation, doesn't need company, doesn't even need peace. He is the storm and the eye. That's why I always say the real battle's not in the streets. It's not in business, not in war, not even in love. The real war happens in that quiet room, alone, no applause, no audience, just a man and his reflection. And only one walks out in control. So the next time you sit alone and your thoughts start to claw at your chest, don't flinch. Don't reach for the phone. Don't look for noise. Sit still. Let the monsters speak and prove to them you're not afraid anymore. In the old days, in the smoke-filled back rooms where decisions shaped the fate of cities, there was always one man who barely said a word. He wasn't the loudest at the table. He didn't interrupt. He didn't brag. He just listened. And that scared everyone. See, in the world of Cosa Nostra, silence is power. A man who speaks too much is like a leaking barrel of wine. Eventually, he runs empty, and everyone sees what he's truly made of. But a man who says little keeps everyone guessing. And in a world where fear is currency, unpredictability is a king's weapon. You could walk into a room of killers, men who had blood on their hands and ice in their veins, and none of them would make a move until the quiet one gave a nod. Why? Because words are cheap. Everyone can talk. But to remain silent in a world of mouths, that's strength, that's control. When I was coming up, there was this consigliere, quiet as a grave. Never saw him raise his voice. Never heard him speak unless he had to. But when he did, everyone shut the fuck up, not out of respect, out of fear. Because they knew if he was speaking, it was already too late to argue. That man understood something most never will. Silence buys time. It lets you observe the weakness in others, their tells, their insecurities, their need to fill the space with nonsense. The man who speaks too much shows you his cards. But the man who listens collects information, stores it, sharpens it, and when the time is right, uses it like a blade. The mob didn't trust the quiet man because he was nice. They trusted him because he was dangerous, because they knew he could ruin you without saying a word. And more than that, because he chose not to. That restraint, that discipline. That's the mark of a man in control. There's a lesson there for every man who wants to build something real. In your family, in business, in your own damn mind. Stop bleeding power through your mouth. Let people talk. Let them underestimate you. Let them show their desperation with every unnecessary word while you sit and calculate. A true Don, a true operator, knows that silence is a weapon, and in the hands of a master, it's more lethal than any bullet. Let me tell you a story. It's not in the papers, not in the books, but those who lived it, they still whisper it like a legend. There was a man, we'll call him Vito, a soldier in the old regime, loyal, silent, efficient, not a boss, not a strategist, just a blade, the kind of man you send when you want a problem erased without echo. But one day, Vito got sloppy. Not in the work, no, in the loyalty. He took the fall for something he didn't do, to protect the family. They sent him away, 10 years, solitary, a concrete box the size of a bathroom, no windows, no voices, no time. Now most men break in there. I've seen it. They start talking to walls, weeping like children, scratching their skin like rats. You put a man alone with his mind, and 9 out of 10, the mind wins. It chews him alive. But Vito, he didn't break. He didn't talk to the walls. He listened to the silence. He made it his companion. He learned its language. In that void, where men lose track of themselves, Vito built himself from the ground up. Every memory he had, he analyzed. Every mistake, he dissected. Every betrayal, he forgave, not out of weakness, but because it was dead weight. By the 5th year, he stopped thinking about revenge. He started thinking like a general, reading movements without books, studying power without a mirror, plotting not with rage, but with clarity. And when he came out, they barely recognized him, not because he looked different, but because he moved different, spoke less, measured everything. He didn't return a soldier. He returned a tactician. The man who used to wait for orders became the man who gave them. See, isolation either cracks a man or it hardens him into something unshakable. Vito understood what most men never learn, that solitude isn't punishment, it's training. The cell didn't kill him, it crowned him. You don't need bars and concrete to find your cell. Sometimes it's your apartment. Sometimes it's that hour before sleep when your demons visit. And the question's always the same. Will you let the silence break you? Or will you build your kingdom in it? That's the test. Because when you finally get out, when the doors open and the light hits your face again, you'll either be a shadow of a man or a storm dressed in skin, with eyes that have seen too much to ever bow again. There's a difference most men never understand, and it costs them everything. They say they're lonely. They moan about it, drink because of it, chase bodies to forget it. But they don't realize what they're feeling isn't loneliness. It's weakness exposed. It's the withdrawal of distraction. It's the cold air that rushes in when the smoke clears and the applause fades, and they're left with nothing but themselves. See, loneliness is when you fear being alone. Solitude is when you crave it, when you master it, when you use it as a forge, a temple, a throne. The average man runs from solitude like a wounded animal. He fills his hours with screens, noise, attention, always seeking, always hungry, always proving, because deep down he knows. If he stops moving, stops talking, stops showing off, he'll have to confront the man behind the curtain, and that man terrifies him. But the dangerous man, the man you don't fuck with, he chooses solitude, not because he hates people, not because he's broken, but because he understands that true strength comes from sitting with yourself until every part of you is exposed and then forging it into steel. You want clarity? You won't find it in the crowd. You want discipline? You won't find it in parties, likes, or validation. You want power? You won't find it begging for attention. You'll find it in that silence, the kind that stretches for days, where your only conversation is with your instincts, your regrets, your ambitions. That's where you train. I've seen men go from dogs to wolves by cutting the world off. One of my top earners used to be the kind of guy who needed a woman in his bed every night just to feel like a man. I told him, stop chasing perfume and noise. Sit with your hunger. He didn't get it until one day he vanished, 6 months off the grid. When he came back, his eyes had changed. No more desperation, just calculation. Calm, control. He became someone others followed, not someone who begged to be seen. You think kings sit in crowded rooms, needing attention? A king sits alone, not because he has to, because he chooses to, because the solitude filters out the foolish, because in the stillness he sharpens the only thing that matters, his mind. Loneliness is weakness crying out. Solitude is power preparing for war. The man who learns to love his own company becomes a man the world can no longer manipulate. There's a reason a throne only has one chair, not two, not a bench, not a circle where everyone gets a say. One, because power is lonely, and the man who holds it, truly holds it, must be comfortable in the silence that follows every decision he makes. You ever notice the men who chase attention are never in control? They need feedback, applause, agreement. They post, they wait, they speak, they scan faces, they move, hoping someone's watching. That's not power. That's addiction dressed up as ambition. A real man, a real leader. He doesn't need echo. He speaks and lets silence carry the weight. Because he knows the world bends not to noise, but to presence. And presence is forged in solitude. Think of every great boss, every strategist, every feared general. They all had that same look in their eyes, like they'd already made peace with being alone, like they'd already buried every part of themselves that needed company. That kind of man can't be bought, can't be manipulated. He's immune to the games of lesser men. Why? Because he doesn't need the room. He is the room. When I was younger, I used to sit in meetings, surrounded by capos, advisors, sharks pretending to be sheep, everyone talking, everyone pushing their agenda. But the Don, he would just sit, silent, hands folded, eyes steady, and when he finally spoke, it was never a question. It was a decree, and no one argued, not because they feared punishment, but because they felt the weight of a man who carried his solitude like a blade. That's what the throne demands. Because when it's just you and the lives of others rest on your word, you can't ask for opinions. You can't pull the room. You can't waver. You either trust your mind or you fall. And here's the truth most men can't handle. The higher you rise, the lonelier it gets. You want to be liked? Stay average. Blend in. Laugh when they laugh. Cry when they cry. But if you want to lead, if you want to truly own your space in this world, then understand this. You will walk alone. Not forever, but often. Because most men can't breathe at the altitude you're aiming for. The air's too thin, the pressure's too high, and the silence too loud. But that's the price. And the reward? When you sit on that throne, alone, clear-eyed, unshaken, you'll realize you don't need anyone to validate the crown on your head. You just need to be the kind of man who doesn't flinch when the room goes silent. Because power doesn't need company. It just needs control.